Cars mean a lot of different things to us. To some, they represent the freedom to go where we want, when we want. For others, they're tools to help us do our daily tasks. Some of us just love the drive, the thrill of speed and the adventure of the open road. And while any car can be your ride to work and back, and an SUV can help you ferry around your family and groceries, and a supercar can look great parked up in Knightsbridge or tearing around a racetrack, there's a particular breed of car that needs to satisfy a very specific shopping list of requirements. A car that can comfortably take you hundreds of miles in a single sitting, doing so in elegant comfort, at speed, and looking damn good while it does it. A Grand Tourer. Named for the epic European road trips the wealthy elite used to take in the earliest days of the motor car, now the GT car is something Britain's top manufacturers have been pretty good at. Cars like the Aston Martin DB11 and the Bentley Continental GT have been waving the Union flag proudly on that front, setting a strong template for what a GT should be. But there's a new player in town, and they are not playing by the rules. This is the McLaren GT. Instead of the front-engined rear-wheel drive setup you might presume a GT car needs, the McLaren GT sticks with the mid-mounted engine layout we're used to from McLaren. In fact, the engine is a 4-litre twin-turbocharged V8, mid-mounted behind a carbon fibre tub. That sounds very McLaren. At 611 brake horsepower, a 0 to 60 time of 3.2 seconds, and a top speed bothering 200 miles an hour, on paper the McLaren GT sits in a very similar kind of place as its stablemates.
But how is it to drive? Can it truly embody all those qualities that we want in a true continent carving GT car? Or is it simply a repackaged 570S or even a repeat of the 570 GT? Well, there's only one way to find out, and we've come to the mountains down here in the south of France to find out exactly that. The first thing that was immediately obvious to me was the steering. It's hefty, it's weighty, it's purposeful, and you feel it. It's real, it feels mechanical, there's nothing intervening between you and the steering. It gives plenty of feedback, I can feel where the car is on the road, but it's not twitchy, it's not immediate, it's purposeful. And on these twisty mountain roads, it feels a little bit weird to be coming into a hairpin like this, and feeling the weight through the steering, where a lighter steering would whip me around really quickly. The car turns in perfectly, the steering works, just the weight of it is impressive. The next thing you notice are the brakes. They require effort to push. They are purposeful, much like the steering. They're not twitchy. It's not the slightest press won't stop this car on its nose. You need to give it a firm press to get everything out of them. And that is because this is set up as a GT car. That seems obvious, it being a GT car, but it's still a McLaren, which we previously have only felt do supercar style brakes, where you want them to be responsive. You want a firm press to set this thing up on its nose, because that's how you brake when you're out on track, when you're enjoying a car like that. With a GT car though, you might just want to make very small adjustments in your speed. And that means this brake setup works perfectly. It becomes wonderfully fun to drive, if not the fastest thing to throw around canyon roads and through mountain passes, but certainly something that gives a lot of fulfillment.
Where previously we've had supercar expectations from McLaren, asking for the sharpest of handling, the highest degree of responsiveness, and the ability to strip second after second from our lap times, now we'll be asking for something else. Performance has to be married with finesse, comfort, and practicality. Can McLaren deliver that without losing that which made McLaren Automotive able to go shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Ferrari? Can it now also pick a fight with Aston Martin and win?
Other GT cars come at it from the opposite direction. Consider the Continental GT. Bentley comes from a background of making big limousine cars, and the GT says we can still do all of that luxury limousine style comfort, but we can dial in a dynamic part of the driving as well. We can add that to the mix. This car comes from the opposite direction. McLaren already have that built into their DNA. but now they're proving that they can repackage it into something that's comfortable on long distances.
The end result for the handling is a car that, in a straight line off the mark, can hold its own against its supercar brothers and sisters, but that will undoubtedly not be able to give you the same thrill or lap times out on track. But the track is the last place the McLaren GT should be found. Use it for what it's designed for: long stretches of autobahn, cross-continental journeys, and taking advantage of the odd quiet country road, and the GT delivers. Its forgiving nature allows you to feel safe and secure at speed, giving you the tools to react to the road beneath you, trading pin-sharp responsiveness for weighty confidence.
McLaren says this has proactive dampening, meaning that it's not just reacting to what's happening on the road, it's actually using the information you're giving the car through your inputs and what it's sensing from the road to predict what's going to happen next. I mean, it's not clairvoyant, but it certainly helps it make up its mind a fraction of a second earlier than it would have done otherwise. It gives you the opportunity to be a little bit more dynamic through the corners and throw it around a bit, and the car soaks it up perfectly.
It's not only unlike any other McLaren. The GT feels like it occupies a completely unique spot amongst all GTs. With the centre of gravity pushed much further back than you would have in a front-engine GT, even twistier, more challenging roads don't upset the composure.
Engine noise-wise, this has a different characteristic to all other McLarens. Even though it has a quite similar 4-litre V8 twin-turbo engine, the length of the car has added new opportunities for the sound to be, well, different, more GT-like. It's deeper, it's rumblier, and when you put it into sport mode, and it opens up those valves, it's not overwhelming, it's not terribly aggressive, but it gives you feedback, it gives you confidence. It's a nice sound. You still get that McLaren experience. I mean, 0 to 62 is 3.2 seconds. That is proper supercar quick. It doesn't feel like that in normal driving. It feels a little bit more sluggish. The throttle response is dialed in for a GT car, so unless you have it in the most track-focused modes, it's not twitchy, responsive and quick. It requires a bit of time to spool up. It's because it doesn't want to throw you off balance really quickly. It wants to keep you composed. If you change your mind, the car softens that process of changing its attitude, so you're not being pitched and rolled.
Visually, it retains a lot of what makes McLarens instantly recognisable. Overall, the design is relatively minimalistic, that modern mid-engine silhouette untroubled by extra creases or wings. Bar the huge side intakes that dominate the side mirror when you're looking back, it's the most modest looking car McLaren have ever produced. But still, at a glance, you are in no doubt that this came from Woking.
In terms of the interior, it is very much a McLaren interior. It has never felt like they've made as much effort for the pomp and pageantry of getting into a really special car. A Ferrari, for example, from my opinion, has always had a little bit more attention to making it feel like you're sat in somewhere extra special. But this, as a GT car, has some great touches that McLaren have added in. The minimalist approach means there's not a huge amount of stuff to take your attention away. The trim around the controls and around the screen all make it feel like a nicer place to be than some other McLarens. And the star of the show for me is the steering wheel, not adorned with a million buttons, but this single piece of aluminium billet right in the middle. So downside to that is when you're making a 3-point turn, it actually blocks the screen from the rear view camera on there. Little bit of a downside. Another slight gripe is the seating position. Now I've set this seat as low as possible, but unfortunately it still feels like I am so high up that I'm being denied some of my view from the top of the A-pillar, the roof here, and the visibility out to this car is hindered by it. Right now, through the huge bit of glass at the back, I've actually got reasonable view out the back, but we've been traveling with luggage in there, and as soon as we put our bags in there, I can't see jack.
But surely the point of having a front engine setup for a GT car is that it allows you greater boot space, one of the key ingredients of a GT car, I hear you cry. And you're right, normally a mid-engine car would struggle to accommodate much in the way of luggage. The McLaren GT, however, got round this by dropping the engine lower down, moving as much of the engine out to the sides as possible. It's what gives the McLaren GT such wide haunches and why it needs those huge air intakes on the side. Extra heat insulation between the engine and the luggage compartment minimises heat transfer to your suitcases. It won't keep ice cream solid for very long, but it's perfectly safe. The luggage compartment is in fact large enough to accommodate a full-size adult man. Ask me how I know. Add to that the frunk, and you actually have more total luggage space than some hatchbacks. You're not going to be able to help anyone move house, but you can get a whole lot more in there than you would ever think.
I have to say, with everything included, with any bad points that I've highlighted in the car, I do really like it. I'm a big fan of McLaren's. A lot of their cars I find a lot of fun to drive, and I was unsure about this car, and although I'm still not 100% sold on its looks, throwing it around these roads out here, I really appreciate the difference this has between it and the Sports series.
When McLaren told us years ago that their cars would stick to the categorization of Sports, Super and Ultimate, it made a lot of sense. A one-dimensional categorization that clearly shows that there is a single-mindedness to what a McLaren is, and the only difference is how much you're willing to spend on it, how track-focused it is, and how low your lap time can get. Now, with the McLaren GT, it's no longer that simple. The lineup is now multifaceted, and now the Grand Tourers make up a completely separate area for McLaren. The 570 GT was a one-off experiment. The McLaren GT, on the other hand, is a statement of intent for the future. And the likes of Aston Martin and Bentley need to take note, because if there's one thing that McLaren has proven it can do, it's to pull up its own chair to the table and take a seat.